Jazz. Thank you for stopping by. Today I'll be discussing lymphedema, so stay tuned. I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, and thank you for coming back to look at another video. Well, from the time I made my very first video, which was a couple weeks ago, a lot has transpired. Like, so many things have happened within three or 4 weeks, I would say. But a lot has happened. So I told myself I wasn't going to do any more videos because I needed to focus on other things right now. But in the midst of me preparing for some things, I just was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a video on some things that kind of been revealed to me lately. And I don't know what it is about 30. Everyone says that 30, like, your life goes through this big change. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It can happen at 25, 22, whatever. But I turned 30 in January. And when I tell you, my life has really been in like this stage of transition. Like, it's really been transitioning. I've been seeking more knowledge, wanting more clarity, and just to kind of be a better version of myself. And I don't know if it is like, oh, I'm 30. I don't pay attention to it that way, but it's definitely like a big transition. So today, you're gonna learn with me. So I've been preparing and studying. I'm in the healthcare field, and in doing so, I kind of research. I've been doing research on Alzheimer's disease lately, just because my grandmother had that disease and she recently passed. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna start to look into ins and outs of this disease and see what's really going on with it. Also with hip fractures in the elderly, like all kind of things. But today, well, actually last night, I was kind of looking at the lymphatic system, and I'm gonna tell y'all, it's so amazing how the body works and how all the systems work together so we can move and function and live and breathe effectively. So, lymphedema. So, lymphedema is going to be the topic of discussion for today. And like always, like with the grass and the sod a couple weeks ago, while I'm like reading and researching and studying, I get all of these different kind of, I don't know if you want to say metaphors or things that come into my mind on how things of the body relate to our everyday life, our spiritual life, and things of that nature. So, lymphedema. Well, first, you can't really talk about lymphedema without talking about the lymphatic system. So, the lymphatic system is just like any other system in your body. However, the lymphatic system flows everywhere. You have parts of the lymphatic system just like you have with the venous and the arteries and all of that. It's all over the body. So the purpose of the lymphatic system is to kind of get all of the toxins or waste that may be within the body. It circulates and grabs all those different toxins to get it out and filter it through. And you have lymph nodes or lymph that carry that out. Also, let's see, like the lymphatic system, when you're having some type of trauma or injury, it sends in all of this fluid with white blood cells to help fight infections and things of that nature. So it's very, very important, the lymphatic system. So although the lymphatic system, and you have lymph nodes all over the body, and you have lymph all over the body, there are certain areas which they call it kind of like trunk areas. So like your armpits, your growing area, you have these certain areas in your body sometimes that is really heavy in, or you have a big node to where the lymph can get to that point from maybe your hands or maybe your feet, and it can get to there and it can continue to circulate like it needs to circulate. So what happens in lymphedema is that there's a problem with the lymphatic system to where that lymph or that accumulation of fluid is not able to return up to be able to continue to get filtered and circulated. So what happens is you'll have all of this fluid that would accumulate what they call distally, which is typically in like your hands. You know what distal is, like furthest away from your body or furthest away from your midline. So typically hands, your feet, lower extremities. And no, it's very rare to have primary lymphedema. Lymphedema usually occurs by some type of trauma, such as like a surgery or something that happens to where you actually have some of the lymph nodes that are removed. And when you remove some of the lymph nodes, it decreases the attack on all of the on them to circulate properly. So if you're missing some, they're not going to be able to do their job to accumulate all of the waste and toxins from the body, and so that fluid will accumulate. Typically, from my understanding, it happens a lot with they call it secondary lymphedema, with women who have undergone breast cancer or a mastectomy, because when they're removing the cancer from the breast, many times where the incision is made, the lymph node in that area is also removed. Okay, so that's a little background on lymphedema. And so what they tell women who have undergone breast cancer and mastectomy, they don't want secondary lymphedema to take place. So they'll pretty much tell women to kind of stroke the skin, stroke the fluid, or even if you don't even see any fluid build up, you kind of stroke it, and they call it distal to proximal. And they call that manual lymphatic drainage. But a very, very, very important component to that is decongestion. So if I were to say I have fluid in my hands and it's coming all the way up, if I were to kind of stroke and try to get all that fluid up, if I don't decongest, all of that fluid is just going to build at my joint at this next area. So it's going to get there kind of like a traffic jam, get there and stay there, and then go right back down because it has nowhere to go. So in order for it to get to the midline or trunk area, they tell you to kind of decongest. So you want to move these joints that's above where your hand is, or you know, if you have it in your lower extremity, you know, you're looking at your feet and you're looking at your hip and your knee. So you want to decongest the areas first and then go ahead and stroke and get all that fluid up. Because if I'm just stroking and moving fluid here, like I said, it's just going to accumulate here. It has nowhere to go because I didn't decongest this area first. And you're gonna like, oh, it looks good. The fluid is all out of my hands and out of my wrist, and boom, all the fluid is right here in your elbow. So if you don't decongest your shoulder first, or decongest and then your elbow, the fluid is just gonna return right back down because it needs to get back here to be able to go ahead and get circulated. So I'm like, okay, it was really good learning. I'm like, I like this, but I thought about life, and I'm always, like I said, just like a transition year, I'm always thinking about life and the importance of decongestion of things in your life before trying to move on and trying to heal. So we get to this phase in life where we may have experienced some type of trauma, like that mastectomy, that trauma, and it throws things off. So whether you had a rough upbringing, rough childhood, bad breakup, divorce, you know, anything, molested, all kind of trauma happens in life sometimes that we just kind of go through year by year by year by year by year, and we're still carrying all of these old wounds and all this old baggage and all this old pain and hurt and trauma. We're carrying it with us every day, every year, every decade, to where we get to a point, and it's like an ongoing cycle, and you want to take hold of your life and say, you know what, I want to do things better. I want better for myself, so I'm gonna start taking those steps to be a better person for myself. So I'm gonna start stroking and stroking. I'm gonna start reading. I'm gonna start going to church. I'm gonna start meditating. I'm gonna start doing all these great things so I can get rid of all of this trauma and become a better person and leave all of my past behind. The problem with that is that you can't do that without, like I said, decongestion. So what I mean by decongesting is that sometimes in order to have a full healing, you have to go back to that painful spot or that painful childhood or that painful place, that painful breakup, whatever it is. Nobody wants to go through pain. Like, I certainly don't. Nobody wants to revisit pain. You barely made it out the first time you went through it. Why you gotta revisit it? So it's necessary, although it's going to hurt, because a lot of times we put all these things that has happened and all this trauma, we repress it into the back of our mind as if it never happened. And even though we may make progress in life and we may be doing things more positively and things are better for our life, the minute we get to that obstacle or the minute that we get to a certain place, the elbow, it's gonna come right back down because we haven't decongested. We haven't gone back and figure out, you know what, I had a problem in my childhood and I developed some bad habits from my childhood. I developed a bad way of thinking. I went through a very bad breakup, and in that breakup this happened to me, and I developed a nonchalant attitude towards women or towards men. I disregard men. I don't value men, and because of what I went through. And so when you have that mindset and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try to brush that off and I'm gonna start dating again. And then the minute that something in that relationship or something doesn't happen quite right, bam, all the fluid's right back in your hand. Those feelings of neglect, those feelings of abandonment, those feelings of all kind of just negative feelings, it comes right back, and what you feel is going to show through your actions. So that's why it's so very important to decongest. It's so very important to go back. And a lot of times, honestly, you really can't go forward unless you're going back. And I know a lot of people use like the bow and arrow. You kind of got to go back in order to launch. But I'm PT. I look at everything in a movement base. So I think about like a ball. And you watch kids playing and they kick a ball, or they're doing soccer, or they're playing soccer, and like they have a ball. If I was to just have a ball right here and kick, the ball isn't gonna go far. I don't have enough force. I haven't built up enough velocity to actually accelerate that ball a good distance. But when you see people and they kick that leg back and then kick a ball, or they put that leg back and then kick it, that ball is gonna go a lot further because they have built up some force from going backwards and being able to launch that ball where it needs to go. Or if like baseball players, the pitcher, he never just throws the ball like that. Sometimes they got to go back, boom, to get that ball to go where they want it to go. And it's the same thing in our life. You have to sometimes go backwards, go back to pain, go back to hurt, revisit it. You're not staying there, but you have to get an understanding on it in order to get acceptance on it, and then knowing the steps that you have to take to actually heal from it. Again, I'm no mental health person. I'm no psychologist, psychiatrist, none of that. My role in healthcare is totally different, so I'm not a professional, but these are things that I've pretty much just learned along the way for me. And like I said, it's always tough, but it's so necessary. And once you're able to decongest and get all those old wounds healed properly, not just covered up, but actually healed, you'll see that your lymphatic system can continue to flow and it can do what it do. So when hiccups happen in relationships, or when different things happen in your career, or just you're not carrying along trauma and baggage and hurt from the past. So the lymphatic system can do what it normally does. It filters out toxic stuff. It filters out waste so your body can move like it's supposed to move and operate like it's supposed to operate. And once you get rid of all that hurt, and once you do all that healing, and once you do all that decongesting, your life will be able to flow and circulate how it needs to circulate and flow, and you'll be able to walk in your purpose and live the best life that God has intended for you to live. So that is all for today. Thank you for learning with me, and I hope you all have a really great day in the upcoming great Memorial weekend. So until always, I said that completely wrong. Love always, Jazz. I meant to say until next time. Oh well.